have you guys here. My name is Jesse. I'm gonna here talk to you guys about how to launch games in 2025 and going onwards. What's kind of off with the way we've been launching games and how we can actually fix that. The mandatory who am I slide. My name is Jesse Lempiäinen. Here we go. I did my time like practically everyone that's ever been in Helsinki and mobile gaming industry at Rovio. I was there for 5 years as a product marketing manager, mainly specifically at the last years, mainly launching new games. And after that, we co-founded a new company called Geeklab, in which we help mobile game developers and marketeers to launch new games. Been doing that for about 5 years now. So yeah, today I'm gonna go through simply, here we go, why we need to change, or what's the background for it, what are the kind of three main conflicts that I see in how we've been like launching games previously, how we can fix that, and then just so that you guys also have something concrete to live after this talk, so some actual examples on how you can do it. But yes, so why do we need to change? Well, this is an obvious fact, and given that we're all here, making games is super fun, which leads to that becoming like quite a big and competitive market. In mobile games alone, there's more than 700,000 mobile games released on App Store and Google Play, 12,000 to 14,000 games released a year on Steam, so a very, very, very competitive market. And majority of the new game launches, they actually fail. So if a mobile, we look at the top 10 games as an example, so only one of them has been released after 2023. So as you can see, very, very competitive market. And out of all the successful launches, there's kind of two things and two weapons that these games have in common. And that's pretty much either they are from $1 billion companies, so this particular game is from Tencent, or they're also from more than $1 billion companies, but also have access to very, very strong IPs. If you don't have both of these or any of these, so then we need to rethink a bit how we launch games. So let's jump right into it. It was back in 2018. I was still working at Rovio, and we were launching this particular game called Angry Birds Dream Blast. And it's actually on the top 100 crossing USA, which means that we can call it a very, very successful game launch, even after a couple of years. And whilst one might think that was kind of, we did everything that we planned to do, and then we released the game and it was a successful launch, it truly wasn't. I was part of this launch and lucky to have my name in the credits. But I also have my name in a lot of games that did not make it. So we had a lot of money, we tried one game, it completely failed, we lost a lot of money, we tried again, another game, we lost a lot of money, once again, and then with the final money that we had left on the bank, we killed it with Dream Blast, and then it saved the company. Obviously not truth, Rovio had a bit more and better situation than just hanging on to this one last chance. But regardless, point being that before we were able to actually launch Dream Blast, we failed multiple titles in a row with the same studio and same team before we were able to get there. Well, then we started Geeklab, and contradictory to what happened at Rovio, where we had a lot of money and we had the capabilities of testing things and failing, in Geeklab we had absolutely no money. It was a bootstrapped company, and on top of that we had no features. So what we then ended up actually doing was that we had no other choice but to develop these features to partners that we were like working with whilst we were already kind of working with them. So we couldn't wait and then launch a feature, but we actually developed them right together with them. And that kind of made me realize that here's a lot of the things that we could actually do when we launch mobile games and games in general that we don't necessarily do at this moment, specifically even at Rovio. So that led into me figuring out three main conflicts that I see in the way that we currently launch these games. Number one, We say we do it for the players, but if we're completely honest, we're quite often developing these games for ourselves. And what I mean with that is that this is more or less the traditional way of building games. Happy to hear if you guys disagree. But essentially, you might call this a flight path, a roadmap, product, whatever. But typically, we have something like this, which kicks off with the initial idea, where you have the main KPI, the milestone to move from the initial idea to production is more internal validation. Like, is this game fun? Is there market potential, and so on. And if internal playtests and internal rounds go well, then you get the green light, and then you actually get to start to go for production. During production, typically at the end of the production, you might do the first market tests and actually see what the marketability of the game might be, and then you run more technical tests. So typically then the KPIs that you follow at this stage are like maybe installs per mil and then just regularly crash rates, right, with the technical test. After that, if things go well, so then you get to actually soft launch the game, where it's all about making sure that you can then actually acquire users profitably in mobile, at least. In PC and console, it's maybe a bit more from the feature side when the product is feature ready, but in mobile, it's specifically about like when you get to when you hit that specific point where you can actually run profitable user acquisition. So typically the KPIs that you follow are things like ROAS and maybe installs per mil multiplied by your day one retention, so that you get an understanding of your effectiveness of your marketing. And then things go well and you globally launch it, then it's all about like live ops, updates, DLCs, and so on. But when we look at this, so again, the first idea was that we say that we develop these things for the players. But honestly, at least this all right here is completely internal. And the first time that we actually truly do this with the players is during the soft launch, which is already quite far in the development itself. And then if we talk about PC and console, sometimes it's even further like this, that the actual time when you first show things to the players is only at the global launch, which means that this entire time before is more or less internal rather than building it together with the players. And what that means is that the cost, obviously, it accelerates over time, right? So the further we go, the more the game development ended up costing you, which means that if you fail late, you fail very, very expensively. And if you fail early, you fail cheaper, meaning that then you can afford to fail twice or fail multiple times. So the earlier you fail, the better. Here's an example. So at Rovio, we were building up this is one of the games that we ended up killing. But we were building this new puzzle RPG game. So essentially, the characters and the character art style was like very, very important part of like what the game actually is, because obviously them being in the very, very center of the game, we thought that not only does it affect the marketing side of things, but also the engagement as well, and how the players connect with the game then eventually. So we thought, let's test the character art style. Let's figure out what would be the best style. This was the original style that you can see right here, and these were the variations that we ended up creating. If someone's seen this presentation before, don't answer. Roman, I'm looking at you. But does anyone want to take a guess which of these actually worked the best? Sorry, ugliest one, did you say? That's typically always the case, right? Well, in this case, actually I loved all of them, so I can't say which one is the ugliest one. But the one that was working the best ended up being this one. And for every 100,000 installs that this original art style was able to get, with this new art style, we were able to get like 38% more installs. So that's massive. That's 38% cheaper cost per install. The only issue, the time when we ran this test was actually here. We were kind of in the middle of just trying to figure out and how we could actually become profitable with our user acquisition. Which meant that already all the art built in the game was built with this particular art style and so on. So simply it was way too expensive for us to redo everything. So we took the learnings, but we had to eventually then shut down the game itself. Second sort of big conflict that I feel we have is that we truly want to collaborate internally, but specifically when teams get bigger and companies get bigger, we quite often have two separate teams, separate units without a clear connection. So and also different timelines. And what I mean with that is that now I realized, by the way, that it's very dark my slides, so you guys probably haven't seen anything. Hopefully, I can be expressive enough. But yeah, so down there is the actual flight path now again. But obviously, the game team itself, the involvement starts from the very first moment that you come up with the idea. The team size of the team, of course, increases over time, but the game team is there from the very first second till the very last second, of course. But then with bigger companies, quite often the central teams, they might get involved in the decision making, whether the internal idea is good. Maybe they help out with the sort of figuring out how big the potential market is. Then maybe during the before they do the first market validation test, maybe you'll run some surveys with the audience and so on. And then later on, just towards the end of the soft launch, that's when the teams typically get then involved on a day-to-day basis with a particular game. And kind of balance between these two teams, how I feel is that the game team, that's sort of the internal side of the vision and how they actually execute that, and it's guided by the external data points. And then the purpose for the central units are to actually provide all of those external visions and data points. And as you can see, it's already quite bad, because then they're not working continuously from the very beginning to the end at the same time, but rather in bits and parts, where then we might end up in a situations like just shown previously with the Rovio example, where it's a little too late, unfortunately. And last conflict that I've noticed is that the smallest decisions that we make will have like the biggest impacts by far. For this, there's an example. So we were working with this new game studio based in San Francisco, where they wanted to make a word crosswords puzzle game. That was like their original pitch and their idea, and they were very open about everything else. So everything from the theme to what type of features that they would have around it, and everything was all something that they wanted to actually verify with the real audience before they start to build those things. So we worked together with them, and we did a lot of market research, and we ended up finding out that actually in the United States, arguably, people prefer dogs to cats. So dogs are by far favored. So sorry for everyone that actually loves cats more, but we're not in States now. But regardless, so we thought that, okay, there's no crossword games now with proper meta. Target audience is United States. People love dogs more. Like let's create one variation where that would be kind of the idea of the game. And that's what we did. So on the left side, you can see here, that's the dog version, where like that protagonist would kind of guide you through the game. And then on the other side, you can see that we that hypothesis was that, okay, we're just going to do it like just a regular newspaper, right? So keep it very plain and very simple, because that's how you typically play word crosswords as well. And again, on paper, this could have been a thing that you think, okay, it's more about marketing and these marketing KPIs that will be determined with these decisions. But actually, if we would have gone with this dog one, that would mean that there would be more focus on meta, sound effects, visual effects, all these other things, meaning that the actual team setup would be that you would have to probably hire like a 2D visual artist, maybe even a narrative designer if you go full on into the meta side of things. And again, for the marketing KPIs, we'd find those out during the soft launch. Whereas then if we do the sort of newspaper look, we would have full focus on the core and the social features maybe, which means that we'd probably hire another level designer and maybe a social new developer that could develop the social features and so on. And again, for the marketing metrics, we'd be able to find those out during the soft launch. But we ran these tests before even the first line of code was put in. So we didn't have to wait until soft launch, but we were able to actually figure this out earlier, and the results were quite phenomenal. So if we would have gone with our original market research, which again, like that was a good starting point. We had done research and figured out there's all this on paper. This seems like a good idea, but in reality, it would have resulted in like 100,000 installs, whereas this new newspaper-looking type of thing had twice the amount of installs. So then, obviously, that was the one that we ended up moving forward, and the team setup then reflected that decision as well. Cool. So yeah, again, to sum it up, we've typically said that we do it for the players, but we do it for ourselves. We want to collaborate internally, but there often is like two different teams with two different timelines. And lastly, the smallest decisions that we have the biggest impacts. But yeah, how can we fix it? This is the key thing that I want everyone to remember after leaving this room. There is no secret worth hiding from your potential player base and audience. Like seriously, we like to think that our ideas are great and there's something that are very unique, but even in this room, there's so many brilliant people that probably the same ideas pop up multiple times, even a day. So it's all about the execution as well. So therefore, go up there and actually show it, test and learn with your audience. One of my favorite games, but Baldur's Gate is a case example of this. One good thing that, okay, again on paper, like massive release and then like became the game of the year and success and everything. But if we break down the timeline, so when it all started in 2016 with a smaller team that started to develop it, already back in 2020 they released like the early access and more or less a version of somewhat playable first act. And they were able to have that online, get feedback, gather feedback from the players, and then finally in 2023 then actually launch it. And after that, obviously, it's been now we're on patch 7, right? So, but yeah, so case example of actually developing it with the players, together with the players. So yeah, instead of thinking it like a traditional flight path with sort of accelerating touch points that you have with your player base, so instead think of it as a loop. Figure out what your potential market is, validate the insights, make analysis that dogs and puzzles in the United States would mean a lot of money, realize that you're wrong, and then just continuously test and validate and learn instead of having like a linear path. And I'm gonna share now just like some concrete example as well, like how you could actually do this. So first, let's imagine we would want to take kind of the same thing that Diablo did with their mobile version, having like a very easily accessible version of something like that, but we would actually take a story-rich game like Baldur's Gate 3 and build it in Unreal Engine 5 and make it absolutely beautiful. And this would be our hypothesis for a game that we would build together. So what we would now do is that instead of just shooting in the dark, let's quickly go through how we could apply this mentality of investing a bit more time and resource in at the beginning to then guide our decisions to the best possible outcome. A quick disclaimer: it's not free. It requires both money and effort, but it's definitely worth it. So I'm going to outline here like kind of what the outcome is, what the resources needed are, tools used, and then also what the kind of budget for this would be. But yeah, it's quite simple. So the very first thing that we could do to just check like if this idea is something that would be worthwhile developing is that we would create an ad. There's not the game yet, there's nothing out yet. Just use AI or take your best artist and jump into it and create the concept imagery and try to actually make ads like as if the game would already be out. Then you can deliver that ad on Facebook or an Instagram. And when the user clicks the download button, then they go to a survey where you explain, first of all, this is quite important, by the way, you have to let the players know when the game isn't out and they are trying to download a game. So with the survey, you can easily explain that, hey, thanks a lot for your interest. You're one of the lucky ones. The game isn't out yet, but you can actually influence how we develop this game by answering a few questions, and at the end there's a Discord channel that you can join and be in the loop of this development. Um, and yeah, so with this you would get the early insights, early marketing KPIs as well. Like, is this an idea that actually has any traction? You would also be able to get your first engaged Discord members as well. And as you can see from effort point of view, it's rather simple. One ad, one survey. The biggest resource maybe would be that a community isn't a community unless you are actually participating in that community. So then you would have to have someone that's actually taking care of the Discord as well. You could use different set of tools. There's our logo now, but there was split metrics earlier here. You could completely use them as well for the exact same thing. So whenever you see our logo, think of there as well. And then the budget would be around $1,250 that you would, majority of that would go to Meta, just so that you would get those users in to click that ad. Cool. That would be the first step. Then we would iterate again. So now, instead of like directly going to the survey, so from Meta, they would go to a lookalike app store page. Again, on our platform, or split metrics. And when they click the download button on the app store page, then they go to the survey, and then after that to the Discord. So we'll get a bit more information on how the users actually behave. And now what we could do is we could actually play around with different art styles. So we could kick it off by building one with a bit more realistic style, one with a pixel style, one with cartoon style, one with sort of mobile friendly 3D 2.5D style, and then maybe one wildcard, which is like a text-based version into the mix as well. And as you can see with the art styles, the setup would be more or less the same, and then well, the text-based one would be a bit of an outlier. And again, in this case, we would get even a deeper look into the audience. We'd already be able to kind of figure out also what type of user personas are coming through because of the surveys as well, and truly understand what's the impact of the decision of a theme that we would pick, art style that we would pick would actually have. This needs a bit more resources now, so you would have to have the ad, then the App Store creatives too, so that means an icon and at least two screenshots. And again, you would have to have someone in the community looking over at Discord. Tool setup is up there, and then for this, the budget that we recommend to use at least is around $5,000. Again, just going for Meta in this case, to be able to get enough users and enough statistical significance to have make sure that the decisions that you are making are the right ones. And then lastly, we would again have the exact same setup, and now we would test out the theme itself. So we could have one that's in fantasy, one that's in sci-fi, and then one that would be set up in a modern warfare. Again, more or less the same exact things that you would get out, but just now instead of the art style, you would understand the impact of the theme itself. Same resources needed, same tools, and the budget would be more or less the same. Quite simple, and with just those practical 3 tests essentially, and budget less than like 1,500. No, 15,000. Yes. What we would have is that instead of us taking this like initial idea that we had, and then just like continuously developing it by ourselves, maybe a couple of surveys here and there, we could have ended up somewhere in something that looks like that. But now, because we were running this test and we knew like what the actual impact of our decisions would be, and which art style, which theme, and so on we should pick. So it could be that first we figured out, oh, it's actually the 2.5D art style that's way outperforming everything else, and the best theme would be the sci-fi theme. So the outcome of the game that we would be building would be completely different. One last thing I want to mention here is that you don't always like have to do exactly what the data says as well. So if your team is like completely passionate and you guys are completely passionate about like the fantasy theme, and you absolutely hate sci-fi, so even if the data shows that the sci-fi would be the best one, that doesn't mean that now you're forced to make a sci-fi game. What it means is that now you have the data, and now you understand like, okay, this is a conscious decision. We're now picking up the sci-fi theme over the we're picking up the fantasy theme over the better performing sci-fi theme. So maybe we'll have to introduce a bit heavier monetization or something else that then kind of covers up for the loss that we'll have in terms of its traction and marketability.